Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Guns N' Roses Central. And we got some news for you guys. So, Slash gave an interview while he was at NAMM this year. He was talking to Guitar.com, and of course, the topic of new Guns N' Roses music came up. Although he was there to promote his new line of signature Slash guitars, and he had this to say about new GNR music, saying there's no definitive answer on anything, and I'll just keep to that. Stuff is happening, but there are no specifics. More than anything, it's because of the nature of the industry right now. It's like, how do you want to do this? I mean, there's material and there's recording and there's stuff going on, but we're not really sure what's going on with it right now. So, replying to the interviewer's further talk of the changing music landscape, the guitarist added, yeah, and there's a handful of people who said, yeah, make a record and go old school. And then there's a handful of people who are like, we don't even know what buying a record is anymore. And just recently, about a week ago, his fellow guitarist Richard Fortus struck a more hopeful tone for the ninth year in a row, saying that hopefully the band will be releasing new music this year. So he told Forbes, we love bringing new songs in when he was asked for an update on new Guns N' Roses music. He also noted that the group always has something on deck waiting to enter the set list during their live shows when needed, saying we always rehearse stuff up. It's just a matter of everyone sort of feeling comfortable to integrate it into the show. He'd go on to say, I hope that we have new music out coming this year. So one of the news items that was popular today was that Metallica guitarist Kirk Hammett gave an interview recently where he looked back on their whole battle with Napster, which is hard to believe it was almost 2 decades ago. So he appeared on the Let There Be Talk podcast with Dean Delray, and he was asked about the whole battle with Napster and what his thoughts were looking back at it. And he made some surprising comments. Now, Kirk Hammett, I don't believe, was one of the more outspoken members. Everybody remembers Lars was so outspoken, and he was kind of leading the whole charge against Napster, while the other guys kind of laid back. And here's what he had to say. He said, we didn't make a difference. We did not make a difference. He'd go on to say it happened and we couldn't stop it, referring to file sharing, because it was just bigger than any of us. And this trend that happened was just effing sunk the music industry. There was no way we could stop it. What happened was all of a sudden it was just more convenient to get music, and it was less convenient to pay for it, and there you have it. He'd go on to say, for me, it was kind of a leveling factor. All of a sudden, all of us were brought back to the minstrel ages where musicians' only source of income is actually playing. And it's like that nowadays, except that a lot of bands aren't really playing. They're pressing play or something, but there are a lot of bands who actually play their instruments and have to still be able to play in a band and still survive. Now, back in 2016, Lars Ulrich reflected on the Napster battle when he talked to Rolling Stone, saying, our impulsivity occasionally bites us in the butt, but because we jumped before we knew what we were landing, in a creative environment, that's a great situation. But with Napster, we jumped straight down to screw these guys, let's go after them. And then all of a sudden, we were like a deer caught in the headlights. I underestimated what Napster meant to people in terms of freedom it represented. So I think that sometimes, even if you don't want to, you got to kind of just do a little bit of due diligence before you jump and at least have an idea of where you think you're going to land. He also went on to say he was taken aback by how the story turned into being about how Metallica were targeting their fans and being greedy, saying that was the brilliance of the other side, he'd say. It was between us and Napster, and the Napster made it between us and the fans, which was a really smart move. That was not the intention. Napster wasn't about money. It wasn't about commerce. It wasn't about copyright. It was literally about choice. What choice is it to have your music available for free downloads? We were saying, hang on, it should be our choice. And then other people had different opinions, and it became about whether you're greedy or about money. And all of a sudden it was like, huh? What? Where did this come from? We're not greedy. Wait a minute, who changed the direction of this whole argument? That was the part that kind of threw us, he'd say. And then we've got another news story that's a follow-up to a story we covered earlier today, and that was all about Joey Kramer of Aerosmiths suing the band for preventing him from performing with them at the Grammys. And then they put out a statement saying he didn't show up to almost 6 months of rehearsals, but it looks like a judge has finally ruled that Aerosmith can perform without Joey Kramer at this year's Grammy Awards this weekend. So according to TMZ, a judge has rejected Aerosmith drummer Joey Kramer's legal request to rejoin his band at the Grammys. So according to TMZ's report, the judge stated that Kramer didn't make a convincing enough case, and he sided with his bandmates in Aerosmith, explaining, given that Kramer has not played with the band in 6 months and the dearth of available rehearsal time before the upcoming performances, Kramer has not shown a realistic alternative course of action sufficient to protect the band's business interests. So if you guys remember, Joey Kramer sustained some minor injuries in 2019 that kept him out of action for a good 6 months or so while the band was in Las Vegas playing their residency. And in his lawsuit he filed yesterday, he stated that he was asked to audition for his role, a move that was contrary to how the band had conducted its business when other members of the band had to leave for medical or personal reasons. Now, according to the band, the drummer really was not happy with the opportunities presented, but when he finally agreed to show up to rehearsals, they didn't think his playing was up to par or up to snuff. And they even did state the door was open for Kramer to come to the Grammys and at least celebrate with them and come to the Music Cares event where they're going to be named the first person of the year.